A U.S. military officer who listened to President Trump's call with Ukraine's president is testifying today. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman is the White House's top national security expert on Ukraine. Nicole Killian shows us what role he's playing in the ongoing impeachment inquiry.
Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman arrived on Capitol Hill to testify. He raised concerns to White House lawyers about the Trump administration's Ukraine policies. As Director of European Affairs for the National Security Council, Vindman listened to the July phone call where President Trump asked Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to begin political investigations. According to prepared testimony, Vindman said he was concerned by the call, adding, "I did not think it was proper to demand that a foreign government investigate a U.S. citizen." He went on to say such an investigation would undermine U.S. national security.
I had a great conversation with the Ukrainian president.
President Trump dismissed Vindman's testimony on Twitter, writing, "The Ukraine call concerned today's never-Trumper witness. Was he on the same call that I was? Can't be possible."
Were you pressured not to testify?
Vindman says he also went to White House lawyers after witnessing EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland telling Ukrainian officials that without the investigations, there would be no meeting between Presidents Trump and Zelensky. Vindman's testimony comes as Democrats plan to hold their first House vote to formalize the impeachment inquiry later this week.
We will follow the facts. We will apply the law. We will be guided by the United States Constitution.
In a letter to her colleagues, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wrote the vote should eliminate any doubt as to whether the Trump administration may withhold documents, prevent witness testimony, or continue obstructing the House of Representatives.
They realize this process is completely unfair, completely partisan, and they're going to try to spruce it up a little bit.
Republicans say they expect every GOP member to vote against the resolution. Nicole Killian, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Steve Bannon says that he will be launching his own impeachment defense for President Trump. It's an effort to counter the Democrats' ongoing impeachment effort. Well, the chairman of President Trump's 2016 campaign and former chief executive of Breitbart News spoke with Yahoo News, where he promised to open a fully staffed war room to bring his anti-impeachment message to the media. Alexander Nazaryan joins us now from Washington. He's the author of that article and national correspondent for Yahoo News. So, Alex, tell us, what really is Bannon's overall mission here?
To do the work that he doesn't believe the White House is doing or that anybody else is doing in the Republican establishment to defend Trump against what he sees as what he calls a master class in political disinformation, political combat. He's a lot of respect for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, which may be surprising to people, but he respects people who are smart and tough and know how to fight, and she can certainly do all of those things.
No, it was interesting that he did have a lot of praise for her in your article as well. Mm-hmm. What is it about Nancy Pelosi's strategy that Bannon really admires?
That she held at bay the progressive wing of her party until she knew she had the right case for impeachment, and then she has unleashed that case in a methodical manner. She has kept her party together, kept them from arguing, while also making sure that the base that wants to see Trump removed from office above all else, making sure that base is satisfied. And that frankly has been a high wire performance by the speaker that I think many people, even her political opponents, admire.
Bannon has been critical of the people within president's inner circle, the people that the president surrounds himself in this current administration. Why do you think he's taking on this fight right now? And does he believe he will really be successful?
He believes he has to be successful if Trump is to win a second term. Look, the fact of the matter is, when he watches Mick Mulvaney up there talking about trying to explain away the Ukraine phone call, Bannon was so dismayed by that, so dismayed by the lack of coordination between the White House counsel's office and the press shop in the White House, the lack of surrogates. He basically said, I have to take this on. The way he feels, and people may disagree with this, is that he got Trump over the finish line in 2016, and only he can now rescue him from the gravest threat to his presidency. That's the way Steve sees it. I know there are people who don't see it that way, who think he's a baleful influence on the president, but Bannon believes he has the ear of the conservative base, and he can convince people to rally to the president's side the way nobody else can.
And, you know, Alex, while he may feel that he does have that base support, he understands them, he was able to help the president win the last election cycle, he wasn't successful in the Alabama Senate race with Roy Moore. He said that he would also primary Republicans who aren't supportive of the president. He wasn't successful with that Alabama Senate race. What makes him believe and feel so confident that he could be super successful in this next election?
That's an excellent question. I actually thought a lot about that as I spoke with Steve and after I spoke with Steve. This is a messaging fight, and Steve is excellent at messaging. Whatever you think of the message itself, and obviously there are people who think the message is xenophobic, racist. That aside, he is a master messenger, right? He's a master of media, organizing votes, registering voters. Those are not his strengths, and I think he'd be the first to admit that. So a Senate seat in a state where he doesn't live, a state that he doesn't really know all that well, doesn't play to his strength. Sitting in Washington and organizing a war, frankly, for all of his sort of denunciations of the media, of mainstream media, this is a war he intends to win with outlets like this one and outlets like mine, not sort of on the conservative media, which he already, that fight is already won. He needs to win this in the mainstream, and that's what he wants to do. So he's more comfortable in the mainstream, despite all of his invocations of being the outsider, of of fighting with the forgotten Americans. He may well have the sympathy of those people, but he really does want to wage this in the mainstream.
And Alex, did he give you a sense of where the population that he needs to focus on, where he feels like the president could best win, and what are the outliers that he's concerned about?
Look, right now, he is concerned with keeping the entire Republican conference in the Senate, in the House, on Trump's side. He's afraid that some of these Republicans who are in vulnerable districts are wavering or could waver, right? The fact that 45 or so senators signed on to Lindsey Graham's resolution to condemn impeachment, that actually worries Bannon, because he knows that leaves way too many votes unaccounted for. So he's really worried about those swing state senators. And he wants to make sure the pressure is on them from the grassroots, and that those senators know that if they vote to remove Trump from office, they will pay, the way that, Mark Sanford paid in the House and others have, and Corker and other senators have sort of retired, Flake have retired instead of facing the ire of the Trump base.
Alex Nazaryan with Yahoo. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us.
Thank you.